when it comes to strength, being bigger generally means being stronger. Where people get lost with this is that being bigger doesn't always mean being stronger. And the reason for that is that you have many things that influence strength. So you might know somebody who is very, very skinny or very small, and they can lift much more than somebody who's, very big and muscular. And that doesn't just come down to one or two variables. There are numerous variables that influence how strong you are. So for example, how much muscle mass you have is one of those things. If you have a bigger muscle, you have more contractile tissue, all else being equal, you will be stronger, right? So if I recruit the same number of muscle fibers, but each muscle fiber is bigger, has more sarcomeres, has more contractile tissue in there, it's going to produce more force. But that's not the only thing that influences strength. So you can also influence how many motor units you can recruit. So if I can't recruit all of my muscle fibers simultaneously, I'm not going to be able to produce as much force, right? There's a skill component there. There's also your anatomical makeup. So let's say my forearm, let's just use the example of a bicep curl. Mm-hmm. So I'll show you for the guys on video. If you use the example of a bicep curl, if my forearm was twice as long, then I wouldn't be able to lift. I would only be able to lift half as much because the lever arm is longer.
Right.
If I have a very long forearm, now I'm holding my dumbbell here versus here. I have to produce more force. It's like somebody sitting on that seesaw halfway down versus the full way down, and I'm pulling down on it. The same thing applies to where my tendons insert. So if my tendon inserts right next to the bone, right next to the joint, it's going to produce, for the same amount of force from the muscle, I will be able to lift less weight than if my tendon inserted further down. So if my tendon inserted 20% further down my forearm, I would be able to lift 20% more weight with the same amount of force.
Interesting.
So there are plenty, and these are just a few. There's other variables, such as just how much force your muscles can produce per unit of area that varies between people. So there are a lot of things that influence how strong someone is, right? There's this, and then these are all very basic movements. Put that into something like a handstand push-up, and you have this skill component of being able to balance and coordinate the movement. And there's going to be variation in that as well. So there are plenty of things that influence how strong you are. It's not that everyone is created equal and it's the person who trains hardest gets the best outcomes. And you see this with all, basically every human attribute you care about. So you see this with things like intelligence. You see this with sports like running. No matter how hard I train, I'm never going to be as fast as Usain Bolt. But if you just take one person, right, and keep all of those variables constant, and you just increase their muscle mass, they're going to be stronger. So having more muscle mass is going to mean you can produce more force. When you look at the high-level guys, you look at high-level guys in any strength sport, powerlifting, strongman, arm wrestling, any sport where strength matters, you will generally see the stronger people are bigger. Look at the calisthenics guys, the guys who are good at planche, they have big shoulders. Look at the guys who can do one-arm pull-ups, they're big. If you hit a plateau and you can't get to the next level, sometimes just packing on some muscle mass can help with that. So once again, this is a big misconception on social media. People talk about functional training and they show all these crazy exercises on Swiss balls with cables. And I think, what is that functional for? If you need to stand on a unicycle and close a curtain with your left hand, one thing that is really functional that these people generally laugh at is just having more muscle mass. Having muscle mass is extremely functional. More muscle mass increases your potential for force output. So all else equal, a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. And I think that's a very neglected part of calisthenics.